Hey guys, I'm Sartorial Phil. Welcome back to my channel. This is another runway review, and today's review is on Dior Homme's Spring-Summer 2019 collection, also just called the Summer 2019 collection. This is Kim Jones, his debut collection. He had just recently left Louis Vuitton, and I made a review and recap of that as well for the 2019 because that was Virgil's inaugural collection. And in this video, I'm gonna go through some selected looks and then more details on the leather goods. I won't get into the pricing details just because I'm not as familiar with Dior Homme leather goods in terms of how they price it. We're gonna have to wait to see how much those are gonna be because they're quite different than what Chris has been doing at Dior Homme in terms of the design and fabrication. My feeling is the men's pieces are gonna be priced more like Louis Vuitton leather goods, their runway goods, which means unfortunately they're gonna be more expensive. And at the end of this video, I'm also gonna be having the full runway as well if you wanted to check that out if you haven't seen it. And now I'm gonna be showing you some selected looks. This is the first look that came on the runway, and you can immediately tell it's a departure from what Chris did for Dior Homme. The colors immediately are different. I don't think Chris ever did this baby blue and white suit in his collections. And this is a double-breasted, single-button double-breasted blazer. And you're gonna see that theme throughout the collection, the single-button double-breast style. And you see pinstriping as well. That's also a design motif that's gonna carry out throughout this collection. The second look reminds me a lot of what Maria is actually doing, and I think Raf Simons did a little bit of this for Dior Women's, where he's using sheer fabrics, but these are, I think they're hand-sewn pieces on top of it, so it has a very couture effect. And definitely something you don't see often for men. It's pretty hard to pull off if you're not on the runway. But it's an interesting piece, and if men's ever did like the haute couture shows, I think this shirt would be in that category. So I feel like this is a nod to what Maria's been doing at Dior Women's. I didn't really see too many shoes worth noting, but this style, kind of like a Converse Chucks with the Dior Jacquard, is an ongoing theme throughout this collection. And I think he's holding a doll, a Cos doll. And in this next look, you can see that Kim is bringing back the Dior Jacquard, which is normally in the women's collections. It's what Galliano made. He brought it back. It was one of the original designs of Dior, and Galliano, when he was still at Dior, he really brought it to prominence, and he used it in many of his collections. And this isn't actually the first time it's featured on a men's piece, but I think it's the first time it's white in a men's piece. When Hedi was at Dior Homme, or when he basically created Dior Homme, he had a few pieces that had the black on black. And then I think Chris carried some of that dark gray on black. But this is the first time I'm seeing it really on ready to wear and in the white color. This one you can see the sheer fabric. There's, I think, pinstriping as well. But the focus for me here is a reinterpretation of the saddlebag. But here it's a keychain, I guess. I'm assuming you can probably put some stuff in it. So it's like a belt wallet. This kind of silhouette has been becoming pretty popular in the last couple of years for men's. And you can also see the belt buckle. It's a little far here, but I think I can show you a better picture later. It actually says CD, and it's two metal pieces. It does remind me a little bit of Salvatore Ferragamo's motif that they use for almost all of their products, that kind of two circular pieces connected by a single hook in the middle. But this one, the two pieces are slightly different because they're meant to represent C and D. And on the key ring of the saddlebag, that's more of the classic shape, the CD. So the left part, which is a C, is narrower than the D. One more thing on the shirt here, it's a little hidden under the coat, but another design motif throughout this collection is that single strap from inside the chest and buttons outside onto the left, which would be on the model's right side. And this is just a full suit, a single button, the double-breasted style that I was referring to earlier. You can kind of see his necklace I think they call it like a Figaro style. It's one of the chunky chains. And I wonder if he actually talked to Virgil, because Virgil, if you see my other video or if you've seen the Louis Vuitton men's Spring Summer 2019 show, it featured chains prominently. So I wonder if this was kind of a nod to Virgil, or maybe they talked about it before both of their debut collections for Louis Vuitton and Dior Homme. So this model you might find familiar. He's in almost every Louis Vuitton men's campaign. But what's interesting for me here is the backpack, and then I'll show you more details later. This I included because this jacket is classic Kim Jones, and we saw similar things at Louis Vuitton actually. So it wouldn't, like, if you were to just show someone this and said it was from Louis Vuitton, I think people would believe it, especially since this look doesn't have the Dior jacquard, so it's a little harder to tell. It's Christian Dior. It does have that signature belt buckle, but from a distance, you probably can't really tell that it's CD. This one, he's playing with floral patterns. They look like wallpaper and brocade. Very classic Dior with the gray and white style here. Again, I think this is borrowing more from the women's aesthetic. And another thing to look at is the bag here. It's a big tote bag, and I remember Kim Jones did similar things when he featured a collection with almost all nomad leather pieces. I think it was a spring summer, maybe 2015. I forget exactly. What's interesting here is I think this might be the first time Dior has used a canage pattern. What I wanted to talk about was this bag really reminds me of an Hermes bag. I think it was like called an Axiom, where it's linen and leather from their men's travel collection. It seems like fluorescents are kind of a thing again for next summer, although this isn't necessarily a fluorescent yellow, but it is a really bright yellow. I don't think Chris ever used a color as prominently as this in a suit. You can also see here that design motif I talked about with the single strap that's coming out from the inside chest. This is another look that is, I think, extremely classic Kim Jones. That t-shirt looks like a Louis Vuitton t-shirt. So, I mean, some people could criticize him for that, but I can easily see this, besides the bag, this entire look being from Louis Vuitton. This is another reinterpretation of the saddlebag used as a belt bag for men's. And the material is very much like Louis Vuitton. I don't think Christian Dior for men's ever had a contrasting stitch like this. But this color, Louis Vuitton definitely did when they still had their Naxos leather, which has now been replaced with the Torion leather. It's extremely similar to that, and it looks very luxe. And then you start getting a shift where Kim is using florals, because it's spring. I think some people might call him out for that, but I think this is pretty fresh for Dior. The last season or last pre-season, Dior did the roses, but it was a really dark and monochromatic take on it. So this is a very colorful take on it. And you can see this trench coat, or this coat, has a slight glossy effect to it as well. And this model is holding a saddle clutch bag. This is, I think, one of the signature looks because Kim teased the collaboration with KAWS. And the invite also had the B with the X crossed out as the eyes. I think this was the only piece that prominently displayed that collaboration. I kind of was happy that it was limited because I wasn't a big fan of the B with the X in the eyes. I think it looks very childish. So I don't think I would get any of the keychains or the stickers or patches that feature this B. I definitely prefer the original B that Eddie used in his designs and that Chris has continued to use, and now Maria has been using in the women's line. The shoulder bag clasp there really reminds me of Alex. I'm not sure if this was if Kim realized that this looks really similar to that, or maybe he may know that designer. And then from this picture, it's a little hard to see here, but you can kind of notice where the sun hits it. This is using that same fabric technique as Kim did for Louis Vuitton Spring Summer 2018. It's that silk organza layering effect. I think this shirt is double layered, so in the outside is a very sheer silk taffeta, and then on the inside I think is a viscose or cotton shirt. And you can see the looks are getting darker. This one I pulled out because this just reminded me of Kim's last collection for Louis Vuitton, his monogram glaze. it's really that same effect of this glossy plasticky material that's being applied on the outside of the shirt, because I think this is backed with cotton fabric. It's just that the shell has this glaze fabric or coating on it. The last look, I think, is somewhat of a statement or maybe appreciation for what Chris has done for the brand. This piece, if I saw this, I would think it was by Chris. It's his look, you know, a all black look, tailoring, double-breasted style. Very classic Chris, and this was the only piece where it was all complete black. I think Kim kind of bookmarked this as the end of a chapter for Chris and just paying his respects to Chris because he's been at Dior for such a long time. But I think Dior Homme is long due for a new and fresher take. I think this collection is going to bring younger audiences to it. And now on to the leather goods and accessories. This first look was the model that I said was in Louis Vuitton men's campaigns and Runway. So this is the new backpack for Dior Homme. This is another piece where you can easily see it as a Louis Vuitton men's piece. This is probably the best backpack design that Dior Homme has ever had. In the past, Dior Homme just kept recycling the same old backpack designs. They really only had one or two, and they just kept doing it season after season with different colors and materials. This one looks super luxe. The handle is very something that I think Kim would do. Reminds me a little bit about one of the Runway bags that I have, where he used the leather handles from trunks on the sides. You can also see the saddle design, and this material again looks a lot like the Torion leather with contrast stitching. And then you can also see on the buckles, they look like brushed aluminum. It has CD on it as well. There's also a smaller version that it comes in. I think this one's harder to pull off, especially for men's, because Louis Vuitton started that whole mini backpack trend with their Palm Springs. So this is a little bit tough as a backpack. Maybe if it was a sling bag where it's just hanging off one shoulder, I think it can work better for men's. And then this is the clutch version. It's basically the front pocket made into a fold over clutch. This is another piece where I feel like I want to get at least one piece of these. So if it's not the backpack, it's most likely going to be this. You can also see there's a fabric strap with the CD metal hardware. So I think that was a really cool use of the CD design without having to say or stamp Christian Dior all over it, which is, I felt like what Chris did a lot. He stamped Dior on it to make you know that it's Dior, and otherwise you wouldn't really know. It also comes as a belt loop accessory. I think it's really cool how the metal hardware, if you look closely at it, it has the C overlapping the D, and you can see the outline of the C as it overlaps. And then the top of the D, that's where the clip is, so you can clip it on your belt loop. I think this would make for a really cool bag charm as well. This, I think, is kind of one of the last flavors of it. It's like that keychain, except it's a little bit bigger and it sits on a belt. So this would be like a belt bag or bum bag, although it's a fairly flat version on it. You're not going to be able to store much on this one. And I don't tend to wear belt bags, so this style might not really work that well for me. And then the last style is a shoulder sling bag. You can see, I think it's just meant to be worn over one shoulder, and on the side is a leather piece that's kind of reminds me of a holster. You can also see in their accessories tray, there's different colors of it. I think some have exotic material, and then the black one has the cause B, which I definitely would not get this with that B. Here is the canage pattern I was talking about. This is traditionally in the women's line. I think this is the first time a men's item carries this. And this carrier or tote kind of duffel, again, just really reminds me of Louis Vuitton. If you didn't know that pattern was Dior, you could easily think that this is Louis Vuitton, especially since Marc Jacobs did they look like laser cut bags. It's been a few years, but I do remember he did one season, I don't know if they call it jelly bags or something, where it was leather cut out like this, and then in the inside was a drawstring bag for you to put your items in. This is just another version of it. This one is, I guess, a north-south tote in black, and then this has that cause plush doll with the Dior Homme suit. I think it's an actual junior suit, and you can see on the lapel it has a CD pin. And then this is kind of the last accessory. It's the new CD metal buckle that does look a lot like Alex, and in one of the other bags when it was slung over the shoulder at a simplified one that looked even more like it. But this is an interpretation where you can see the C and the D. I do like caps. I would be really interested in trying this out. I don't really know if it would work for me. I do sometimes wear my cap like this backwards. It might be a nice look. And you can see the chains in more detail here. That's the link. It's a pretty common pattern, but it has CD in the front. And this was where I thought he may have talked to Virgil about it, just to have some connection between the latest Louis Vuitton men's collection and this one. So thank you for watching. That was my review and recap. I really want to know what you think about this collection, especially compared to what Virgil did for Louis Vuitton, since Kim left Louis Vuitton and now is at Dior. They're both still owned by LVMH though, so they're still in the same family. So let me know on Instagram, or you can comment below here as well. Subscribe for more videos. Check me out on my Instagram. It's the same name, @SartorialPhil, where I'll be posting more details and hopefully replying to you guys. Thanks again for watching. I hope to see you in my next video. And if you want to check out the full runway, stay tuned and I'll stream that after this.